Moving now to a more academic thinking, David, and what are you teaching to the next generation of leaders with Imperial College? What makes this moment different from the previous technology revolutions in terms of speed, irreversibility, and systematic risk?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is something that we're addressing in our intelligence capital theory, because I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was trying to answer that question for myself. So at the risk of going back in history, 2 years ago, 2023, the investment bank Evercore ISI, which at the time was a #1 ranked institutional investor research shop on Wall Street, came to me and said, look, we're trying to put together initiation of coverage on generative AI. Help us understand it. Give us, be the macro strategist, help us work with our team and put the framework together. And with that, we did a fundamental decomposition of the impact of 52 different AI technologies on labor and the economy, and broke it down across 800 occupations and 160 million jobs, and came up with some really interesting insights. But also we came up with a tool, which is still up there, the AI Impact Navigator, so you can put in the ticker for any Russell 3000 stock, and it'll tell you by job function, impact of AI in that company. And we felt like we had a handle on it. All right, we got the tool, we got the report, it's a good report. The one thing that came out of that was, I had to come up with a forecast number for how much money would be spent on AI in 2025. And so I came up with my number, and I mean, is this Chatham House? Okay, so I came up, it's not Chatham, all right. Let's say that there was a vigorous discussion around the bull case forecast, right? A bull, bear, and base case forecast. The bull case forecast, I had one number, they weren't comfortable, that was too aggressive, and so we ended up with 362 billion. So as the 2025 forecast, so up from 150 to 362, and they felt, well, they were laughing at me. They're like, oh, Dave, come on, it's the base case. They're every month I get a phone call. We're tracking it. It's tracking with the base case. Who would care to guess how much was spent on AI last year? 1.5 trillion. So as I like to say, I like to quote John Kenneth Galbraith, who said, economic forecasting was invented to make astrology look good. So with that said, I had to update my numbers because in December I'm looking at it, and Rob Brooks from the Media Lab did his update on his forecast. I said, I'm going to take some inspiration from Rob and I'll update my numbers. And so I did come up with a number for what the Magnificent Seven are going to be worth in 2033. Come see me later if you want to know what that number is. But I was trying to look at labor as well. I'm trying to understand what's going on with GDP and labor and jobs, because everyone's saying the economy's doing great. And then my students can't get jobs. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't understand. And so we dug in, and I dug in, and finally I started vibe thinking with Gemini and ChatGPT. So I give them credit. The three of us came up with this theory of change. But we looked at something called Okun's Law. Okun was an economist who in 1962 noticed that every time GDP goes up 2%, unemployment goes down 1%. And this is a very tight correlation. This is 0.7, 0.8. This was true from 1993 to 2000, from 2002 to 2008, from 2010 to 2019. Held up, looks beautiful. 2025 comes along, and we have what's known as a positive Okun coefficient, which is not supposed to be possible. Something weird is going on where GDP went up and unemployment went up. And then I started digging in further and found phantom jobs. So let's break this into parts. 1.2 million jobs were from people being fired, were lost last year. And everyone told me, I didn't know what I was talking about. It's not Convergence technologies, it's not AI. It's just because they overhired in 21 and 22 after COVID, and they fired a bunch of people. And so they're just cleaning that up. Or it's Trump laying people off, or it's nothing to worry about. I'm like, I don't know, it looks weird. What am I missing? And I found the missing piece. I'm calling them phantom jobs, because they ghosted you. In the US, there are 19 million jobs that should have been created that were not created. In Europe, there are 9 million jobs that should have been created that were not created. It gets worse. I don't want to sound doom and gloom. I will give a happy ending to this story. But if we extrapolate this trend forward, 10 years from now, if we don't change what we're doing, 10 years from now, we're going to have 155 million jobs that should have been created that were not created. What does that mean for the society? That does not mean protests. That means in every country on the planet, you have riots on the scale of the French Revolution. This is not small, this is big. But on the other hand, we have convergence to save us. We have new technologies that can uplift humanity. And I dug further and further and further. I found 3 kinds of intelligence and 3 kinds of ways that we can move forward. Replacement is what I think Mark was mentioning earlier, generates about a 0 to 20% ROI. You take an existing process and person and you fire them and you put an AI in. Augmentation is where you have the human as the master and the AI as the flunky, and there you get a 200 to 600% ROI. All right, we're starting to get somewhere, we're creating some value. But if we bring biologic and synthetic intelligence together, we converge them into symbiotic intelligence, we get a 3,000% ROI. Unless you think that's just academic theory, I've done it empirically in the real world, building an AI accelerator for the government of Canada. Come see me afterwards if you want to hear about that. So it is possible to like turn this around and get out of this scarcity mindset of we don't have enough people or we don't have enough anything into an abundance mindset of we are all going to uplift. And quantum, as a closer, quantum is what I think could be the exponential factor to take that 3,000% and turn it into 30,000% or 300,000%. And that's a utopia that I want to live in.